For decades, laws penalized indigenous identity outright. Land could be lost over it. Children could be taken over it. So families made a choice. Stop saying the word out loud, not because they forgot who they were, but because saying it had become dangerous. That silence didn't erase the truth, it just moved it into paperwork nobody was watching. Tax rolls, census schedules, church membership records that quietly kept what people stopped saying. Decades later, it's usually a grandchild who pulls those records and finds a paper trail that says more, plainly, than any relative ever said out loud. It's tempting to call that silence shame. It wasn't. Shame doesn't survive that carefully across that many generations. What survived was strategy, protecting the truth by making sure it couldn't be used against the people who came next.
That elephant on the political ballot is just a marketing logo? That is the ancestral representation of your republic, a government modeled directly after the loyal and protective structure of elephantine families that have been in America since time immemorial. In our ancient society, we didn't just read about elephants in books, we owned them like dogs, and they served as our great caregivers and protectors during the mammoth phase right here on this soil. You have been fed a fill-in-the-blank history to hide the fact that elephants and camels are indigenous to the Americas. They turned these majestic symbols of our republic into circus acts and minstrel shows, mocking our heritage for the amusement of the New World. The ultimate insult is right in your face, but you're too blind to see it. Dumbo. They named the circus elephant Dumbo as a direct mockery of you, the original Moor, because they think you're too dumb to recognize your own reflection in the sideshow. Look at the cartoons and the circus ads. They even put a fez on the elephant, the physical symbol of Moorish nationality, and parade it around for amusement while you sit in the stands cheering for your own destruction. You were the Dumbo in their circus, as long as you refused to see the truth. After the mud floods and the wars of the 1800s, they had to repopulate the land. They brought in the Cabbage Patch Kids, the generation of clones and test tube babies harvested from orphan trains and World Fair incubators. These were the infant industries protected by the Republican Party's protective tariffs, not factories, but the biological manufacturing of a new, programmed workforce to replace the indigenous Moors. Lynchings were never just about random racial hate, it was corporate liquidation. The men they hung, like Jesse Washington in 1916, were often the chiefs, emperors, and allodial landowners whose names had to be erased so the state could seize their estates and resources. And look at the ritual parallel in that very same year. They took Mary the elephant, the living physical symbol of the Moorish Republic, and hung her from an industrial crane in a public execution. This was a theater of war, a mock ritual intended to signal the total overthrow of the original proprietors. They turned our majesty into sideshows and put Moors in human zoos in our own world expositions to brainwash the public into thinking we were savages from Africa rather than the architects of the mound cities in America. They trapped you in a psychological net, herding you into a status scam designed to reclassify you as contraband, Negro, or Indian. In 1871, through the Organic Act of Congress, the corporate United States officially usurped this land, establishing a municipal government for the District of Columbia to act as a holding company for the Moorish Empire. The slaughter of tens of millions of bison and American elephants was not merely a result of unchecked exploitation. It was a theater of war designed to erase the evidence of the American paradise and the Moors who ruled it. The invaders orchestrated a systematic extermination of these creatures to disconnect the Moors from the natural wealth of their land. Those that weren't slaughtered were captured and shipped overseas to foreign zoos or traveling shows, turning the majestic ancestral symbols of our republic into circus acts, like the mockery of Dumbo. Exactly how they treated the elephants is how they treated the original Moors of America. Before the corporate United States usurped this land in 1871, this was a lawful confederation governed by the Witan Agaman, a mystic assembly of wise men and nobles, and the alcalde, the Moorish village judge or magistrate, whose office existed in every state of the Union. Look at the mockery they've turned your status into. They give you the Republican elephant representing the substance of a lawful government and pitted against the Democratic donkey, which represents the demos, a mere demonstration, a theatrical act, the government of the mob. By joining that demonic party, they are literally showing you that you are a jackass for joining the mob against your own estate and handing your inheritance to a corpocracy. This entire two-party system is a Freemasonic war between two halves of the same whole, designed to keep you in a trance while they strip your mineral estates and allodial titles. We held allodial titles to the very soil. But today, you're acting as a supporting character in a movie written for you by your enemy, supporting a kleptocracy that siphons your energy and feeds on your trauma. Stop being a victim, declare your nationality, reclaim the republic, and remember, the elephant is yours, the land is yours, and the time of the great amnesia is finally over.
You're borrowing the language of liberation in order to actually block liberation. And that's something that we will always call out. Colonized minds, colonized psyches, using colonizer tactics and colonizer frameworks. You are never going to be able to speak usefully. You'll never be able to speak usefully about decolonization or about liberation. You won't be able to speak about it usefully or honestly. No matter how convinced you may be that you are talking about liberation, and no matter what country of origin you are from. You understand me? Because saying that you are from a formerly colonized country, saying that you are from Africa, saying that you are from Asia, saying that you're from the Middle East or what have you, this is not a credential that substitutes for knowledge and understanding. You probably live in the West, most likely. And if not, the West lives in you. Yes, if you're someone who uses the language of liberation, you use the language of liberation to block liberation, well, I don't think there's any way that you could ever be more assimilated to the West than that. There's nothing more American in the world than talking about freedom while you're putting chains on people. Oh, you're fully assimilated when you talk like that. The only more American thing that you could ever do is shoot up a block party on the 4th of July. That's the only thing that you could do that's even more American than that.
This woke, non-racist white woman explains why racist white people hate black people. And honestly, this explains the obsession. If you're not a racist and you love all the God's children, then this is not going to bother you. But if you are a racist, this is going to piss you the hell off, and I don't give a damn.
One of the reasons white people hate black people is because we cannot tolerate black joy. We cannot tolerate black intelligence. We cannot tolerate black beauty. We cannot tolerate black confidence. We cannot tolerate black camaraderie. We cannot tolerate anything that frees a black person. We don't like black people to be educated. We don't like them to be successful. We don't want black judges. We don't want anything for black people that doesn't directly affect and entertain us. So we can have a black nanny. We can have a black house cleaner. We can have a black teacher. We can have a black coach. We can have black players. But only for the specific things that we feel comfortable with. I think I heard somebody say that white people are the ones that have the ancestors that were closely related to the apes. And I believe that. We are Neanderthals. We're fucking pale monsters. I really hate being white sometimes. I'm super ashamed.
Now, what kind of Memorial weekend is this? They got masks, they got their face covered in white.
Like ice to me.
Now, what is that?
Like ice to me.
What is it? They covered. We ain't going out on the streets. Look at everybody froze too.
And you know I want to pick.
What the hell am I reading or about to read? Oklahoma governor calls for resignations after county officials reportedly discussed killing journalists. A hanging black people. Let's get into this. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt, Republican, has called for the McCurtain County Sheriff and multiple county officials to resign after leaked audio showed the county leaders discussing killing local reporters and lynching black people. Sheriff Kevin Clardy, his investigator Alicia Manning, Commissioners Mark Jennings and Robert Beck, Commissioner's Secretary Heather Carter, and Jail Administrator Larry Hendricks were speaking with each other after the March 6th meeting of the County Board of Commissioners, according to the McCurtain Gazette-News. In a series of audio clips and transcripts released by the print-only newspaper, the county leaders began with a discussion of a fire that killed Danette Stowe, 43, after she ran back inside to rescue her dogs from the burning building. In graphic detail, Clardy explains that the county had wrapped Stowe's body up in tin foil to preserve the body and stuff like that. The discussion then delves into a joke about starting a barbecue. So we get her in the body bag and Kyla goes, "You do know what we gotta do now, right?" Faith goes, "No, what?" He goes, "You gotta preheat the oven 350 degrees. Leave her in there for 15 minutes, said Clardy. And she went, ugh. Vomit sounds and laughter. Bless her heart. It was, and then the medical examiner asked her, said, "Hey, we're fixing to go eat." And he looked her in the face and said, "You want to go with me and go eat barbecue?" What? The discussion then devolves into a conversation around Jennings' desire for a return of the days of lynching. Jennings said the nearly 20 people running for sheriff don't have a god-blank clue what they're getting into. "I'm going to tell you something," Jennings said. "If it was back in the day when Alan Marston would take a damn black guy and whoop their ass and throw him in the cell, I'd run for effing sheriff." Clardy tells Jennings, "It's not like that anymore." "I know," Jennings responds. "Take them down to Mud Creek and hang them up with a damn rope. But you can't do that anymore. They got more rights than we got." Next, they begin discussing hiring hitmen, and they specifically mentioned journalist Chris Willingham, the Gazette News reporter who broke the story around the comments, and is currently in litigation with Manning for defamation and civil rights violations. And Bruce Willingham. "I know where two big deep holes are if you ever need them," Jennings added. Clardy said he has an excavator, to which Jennings replies, "The holes are already dug." Jennings then adds he has known 2 or 3 hitmen who are very quiet guys and who would cut no effing mercy. Then they post who would be blamed for the hit if it were ever found out. "Yeah, but here's the reality," said Manning. "If a hair on his wife's head, Chris Willingham's head, or any of those people that were really behind that, if any hair on their head got touched by anybody, who would be the bad guy?" The sheriff's office did not answer the Hill's call for comment. Jennings' office did not have a statement at the time of this publication. The FBI is now investigating the sheriff and county officials, while Stitt said he is appalled and disheartened by the comments. There is simply no place for such hateful rhetoric in the state of Oklahoma, or anywhere else. I added that part. Especially by those that serve to represent the community through their respective office, said Stitt. "I will not stand idly while this takes place. In light of these events, I am calling for the immediate resignation of McCurtain County Sheriff Kevin Clardy, District 2 Commissioner Mark Jennings, Investigator Alicia Manning, and Jail Administrator Larry Hendricks." I second that emotion. A damn shame. I'll see you in the comments, beautiful people.
Futures are white. If that sounds insane, follow Injustice Uncovered. The prosecutor decides everything. Whether you get charged, what you get charged with, whether you get bail, whether they seek the max sentence, whether they offer a plea deal, or whether they go for the death penalty. And in America, 95% of those prosecutors are white. They don't live in black neighborhoods. They don't share the same experiences. But they have all the power. And the data proves they use it differently. White prosecutors charge black defendants more harshly. They reject plea deals more often. They push for longer sentences. And they show mercy to white defendants who commit worse crimes. This isn't one bad actor. This is the entire structure, and black people pay for it with their freedom.
The land that is owed to the black Americans is held in public trust. Until they go and claim their land patents, they'll continue to pay taxes and get evicted and work for us. The fake ones that came down after the wars will continue to be able to claim their heritage.
We passed the bills. When I was in office, we incarcerated a lot of black people after pumping drugs into their communities. See, what we do is induce bonds off the incarceration and sell the securities on the secondary market. They never balance the books, so we lock them up and keep the money. Well, we'll never handle the Mexican drug cartels because they work for us. See, we cut a deal with them to keep the drugs in the black communities just so they can sell the drugs. We monitor and lock them up. This is why they call the drug game the trap. It's a trap for them to go to prison. We took their land, claimed it abandoned, and taxed them. But most importantly, we took their opportunity to compete. We tricked their leaders in the 60s to thinking desegregation was a good thing. It wasn't for them, but for us. We inherited much more. Political campaigns are all a hoax. It's called a two-party system. But our core values are aligned with keeping the people from inheriting what's really theirs. When they claim anything besides who they truly are.
You are looking at the real slaves. This is a true story. Let it be known worldwide.
1800s to early 1900s became a major immigrant gateway. Thousands of Europeans entered here, not Ellis Island, but according to port records, many of them walked out carrying indigenous surnames that didn't belong to them. Receipt number 1. Immigration logs from Galveston show entire families arriving with no prior connection to the Americas, yet within a generation, their descendants appear in censuses as Indian under the same tribal surnames once held by melanated indigenous families. Receipt number 2. Land patent transfers in Texas reveal parcels once tied to indigenous land allotments being signed over to new Indian allottees, often matching those same immigrant names. Receipt number 3. Court disputes from the early 1900s document indigenous families challenging these name swaps, claiming their legal identity and land rights were stolen through fraudulent re-registration. This wasn't random paperwork confusion. It was a coordinated way to replace the people while keeping the land under native ownership on paper. By the time the story reached the history books, the faces had changed, but the names stayed. So today, when you see certain tribes, you're not looking at the descendants of the original people. You're looking at the results of an identity swap that started right here in Galveston. Hit that plus button so you can follow the case.
I understand now more than ever why white people don't like to learn about Black history, American history, because white America create many of the conditions it now condemns. See, you don't get to enslave generations of people, publicly lynch them after Sunday church service, segregate them, strip them of land and wealth, destroy their communities, over-police neighborhoods, flood them with drugs, incarcerate their fathers, underfund their schools, deny them equal protection under the law, and then point out the pain created by those systems and call the people the problem. That is not accountability. That is historical gaslighting. And the audacity of white America to project violence, criminality, and moral failure onto Black people while refusing to confront its own history is one of the greatest manipulations this country has ever performed. Because some of the most horrific acts of mankind were committed on American soil. They were not done by the oppressed, they were normalized by the oppressor. Lynchings became family events. Black bodies were burned, tortured, mutilated, bred, sold, violated, experimented on, and discarded while people quoted Bible verses and called it God's will. Entire systems of terror were justified through whiteness, power, colonization, and a man-made interpretation of religion. And the most dangerous lie America ever told was that racism is over simply because the language became more polished. Ruby Bridges is still alive. The descendants of segregationists are still alive. The systems evolved. They did not disappear. So when people say stop blaming the past while actively supporting policies that suppress truth, restrict rights, attack education, control women's bodies, criminalize Blackness, divide the poor, and preserve inequality, understand what is really happening. They do not want accountability. They want amnesia. Because racism survives best in a country that pretends.
Did the Bible predict the story of Black America? Deuteronomy 28 said Israel would be taken away in ships, not planes, not trains, Ships chained up scattered across the world, stripped of their names, language, culture, and identity. Now who does that sound like? Because it damn sure don't sound like Europe. Families ripped apart and beaten until they forgot who they were. That's not just history. That's the exact pattern the Bible described. And it gets crazier. The prophecy said later, generations would wake up and start remembering their identity. Now look around. Why you think so many black people today searching for their roots, questioning the story they was taught, trying to reconnect with something deeper? This ain't about hate. This about pattern recognition, because no other people on earth match those curses line for line like black Americans do. And if that's true, then this whole time maybe we weren't just descendants of slaves. Maybe we was descendants of Israel all along. If your pastor never broke that down, let me know in the comments, because I already know he skipped over it. And once you start connecting them dots, the whole Bible starts sounding different.
You know how rich the slaves would have been under you if you had not outsourced all of that business to China? Black people had their own manufacturing. Before they had these chain stores, black people had individual restaurants, individual hardware stores, individual mechanic shops, individual barber shops, individual shops for all these things. America's racism is what has us in this situation today with China. Let me explain. Now check this out, fam. Being a factory worker was a common thing for a black man. You could go into the factory, you could work in the factory, you'd be able to buy a house, you'd be able to take care of your kids, you'd be able to flourish. But what happened? Racist white people decided that was too much money for black people. So what did they do? They turned around and outsourced manufacturing to China, when that manufacturing should have stayed in the black community. We built GM. We built Ford, Lincoln, Plymouth. We did that. Our Latino brothers and sisters were the foremost seamstress in this country. They said, no, we're going to wipe out all of their industry. And that's exactly what they did. They shipped it over to China. They shipped it over to Asia. They shipped all of this manufacturing out of the country. And so what happened? China started to get rich. We would have been rich, happy slaves. We had built you the kingdom. Certainly we deserved it. We built you the kingdom. And then on top of that, we would have been wealthy and could not have said nothing and said, look, the Lord put us in punishment. We did our time. But you were too cruel.